Hey guys, it is October 10th, 2019 at 3:40 a.m. Baby girl was born yesterday at on 10/9 at 8:27 p.m. So I'm awake and trying to feed her, but she is not awake. So I'm really excited to record my birth story. Everything went so fast, there was really no time to vlog anything. So I'll get into that very soon, probably later today. So excited for this little being here. She's so amazing. But she's not eating, so I'm just gonna wrap her back up and let her sleep for a little bit. She's had a long day, a really fast delivery, so I'm gonna let her get some sleep, and then I'm gonna get some sleep, and later today I will update you guys on the birth story. Bye. Hi guys, it's Spiritually Mommy. I am so late making this video, but I'm so excited to be making this video. Today is, I have no idea what today is. Okay, so today is October 29th. Definitely new mommy brain, but this is my labor and delivery story. I did have my baby, so I wanted to come on and finally make this video. I've thought about it every day since I've had her, but I've been extremely exhausted. So if you want to hear my completely natural labor and delivery story, stick around. Okay, so today, like I said, it's October 29th. I had my baby girl on October 9th, 2019. And I have a few clips from the day that I went into labor. I think the day before I went into labor. And I'll insert those in here. I literally didn't plan out how I'm going to do this video. I was just awake and my baby is asleep and I have a little bit of energy. So I'm like, I'm going to record it and we'll just kind of piece it together at the end. And hopefully it looks nice. So I'm going to start with my 38-week doctor's appointment. I had my 38-week doctor's appointment on October 8th, which was Tuesday. It was a Tuesday. And my appointment was at 10 o'clock in the morning with my OB. And this was going to be, okay, focus. This was going to be my last appointment because I had an induction scheduled for October 15th. So either way, this was going to be my last prenatal appointment with my OB. So at the 38-week appointment, she went ahead and stripped my membranes. She would have done it the week prior, but I got impatient and I wanted to see someone else in the office because I wanted to be seen sooner. And I saw a nurse practitioner and I was only 37 weeks, so she didn't want to strip my membranes. So my OB did the membrane sweep, or strip my membrane on my appointment October 8th, so at 38 weeks exactly. And that was at 10 o'clock in the morning that she did that. And she told me, you know, if the membrane sweep is going to work, it will work within 24 to 48 hours. So I was expecting to go into labor, you know, immediately. And, you know, I asked her, was she on call? And she said she was on call that night, October 8th. And I'm like, okay, well, come on, baby, because I want my doctor to deliver my baby. So 10 o'clock, she did the membrane sweep, you know, at that appointment. So around that time, she did the membrane sweep. And I left the appointment immediately after she did it. It didn't really hurt when she did it. I think I have a clip of that right after the appointment. I'll insert that in here as well. But it didn't really hurt. I just felt like period cramps. Okay, so I just felt period cramps immediately after I had the membrane sweep. And I left the appointment. I came home. And I went for a walk at about 2 o'clock p.m. I went walking. I didn't walk long. I really sat more than I walked, but I was outside. because I was a little crampy, but the cramps only lasted, she's dreaming. The cramps only lasted for maybe an hour or so. So it wasn't like an all-day thing. It didn't turn into contractions or anything like that immediately. So I went for a walk about 2 o'clock. Oh, what I did feel was lots of pressure. Like she was very, 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 very low. And also my doctor told me that I was 2 centimeters dilated still and 50% effaced. I'd been 2 centimeters dilated for a couple of weeks, almost 3 centimeters, but 2 centimeters nonetheless, for a couple of weeks, so there was no change there at the time of my appointment. And I did go to the store right after the doctor's appointment. I stopped at the store. I stopped to get myself something to eat because I'm like, if I go into labor soon, I want to eat. I know how this goes. So I ate. I went to the store. I picked up a couple of things. I came home and went walking at a local park for maybe an hour. Maybe I was outside for a total of an hour walking. But like I said, I was doing more sitting than walking. But I got a little walking in. And I had to write a couple things down. So like I said, I did not plan this video. So right before I did it, I just jotted down a couple of times that I knew that I wouldn't really remember. But I had to kind of go through my phone log and write down. So that's why I keep looking down. But anyhow, so the walk was at 2 o'clock. I started having contractions maybe around 7 o'clock. I didn't write down when I started having contractions. Simply because I've been having contractions. I've been having like prodromal labor for at least a month. So I wasn't, my contractions didn't seem like anything more than they normally were as far as intensity or having any consistent pattern. So I didn't even bother making note of them. But it was somewhere, I want to say maybe around 7 o'clock p.m. that I started having contractions. We do have 3 older children, and I have a picture of my, me laying or leaning up against my exercise ball, probably around 10 o'clock at night or something. The contractions, when they did start around 7 p.m., they were about the same intensity that they've always been. Every time I had Braxton Hicks contractions, they were the same intensity. They weren't getting any stronger, but they were getting closer together. But at the same time, my contractions have been on a pattern before, and I've had to go to labor and deliveries, I think 3 times, in the past. So I'm like, 50-50 chance. So, they never really let up. I made sure I was hydrated. I made sure that I switched positions. I was moving around and all of that. Just kind of relaxing, gotten a warm bath, and they didn't really go anywhere. So about 10 o'clock at night, I texted my husband. He was at work. I texted him and I said, my contractions are getting closer together. I think I should go in. I think you should take me in. So of course he leaves work. He comes home. My children, who are supposed to be asleep, who's supposed to be in bed because this is a Tuesday night and they have school the next day, they saw, me kind of dragging my feet and just kind of in a little bit of pain, consistent pain, and I had been for hours. So my kids were like, I'm not going to bed. I'm going to watch you. We're going to wait on our little sister because she's coming. So my kids are sitting on the couch in the living room staring at me because they're like, something is going to happen tonight and I'm going to be here to witness it. So when my husband comes home, all the kids are sitting on the couch and they're just like waiting. They have their shoes on and they have their blankets because, it's kind of chilly and we don't know how long we're going to be in the hospital if we're going to have a baby. So they just kind of had blankets ready to go. So, we get up, we pack car seats, we pack diaper bags and all of that. We go to the hospital and I do have a clip for that as well. And I'll insert that in here somewhere. So, my brain is everywhere, but that's kind of what happened with the labor and delivery. They sent me home probably around 2 something in the morning. They sent me home at 2 something in the morning, and I was really frustrated. I don't know, I didn't watch the clip before I started making this video, and it's been a couple of weeks, so I don't really know where where it cut off. But I will say, I got there probably around 12 o'clock in the morning and got hooked up and everything, probably around 12 o'clock in the morning. They kept checking me. I'm sure you just heard all this, but they said they were going to send me home around 1:40 in the morning. And when I got up to get dressed, the pain was just so ridiculous. The contractions, because I'd been having contractions, and the pain was so intense, I guess, that they said, okay, we're gonna monitor you for another hour. We're gonna check you again. We're gonna monitor you for another hour. So they checked me. I was still 2 centimeters dilated. I hadn't changed at all, but they said we're gonna watch you for an hour and see if you progress any, because you're having lots of contractions. So 2 o'clock in the morning, they checked, or at 1 something in the morning they checked. I hadn't had any change. They eventually sent me home. I was really upset because the contractions, they were very consistent. When I went to the hospital, they were like 3 to 5 minutes apart. But by the time I left, they were like 7 to 10 minutes apart. So I was very frustrated. But we got home, I don't know, probably, 2 something in the morning. Kids got back in bed. My husband kind of went about his night. He's a night owl. And I was so frustrated because literally those contractions did not stop all night long, and I didn't bother monitoring them. I didn't even worry about it because I was frustrated. They were just going to tell me I was 2 centimeters anyway, so I just tried to sleep. But literally, I would sleep and I would wake up with a contraction, and the contractions, I would wake up and I just kind of do that, like, through the contractions. The entire pregnancy, I had my mindset on a natural hospital birth with little to no intervention, no medication. I didn't want any Pitocin. I didn't want any pain medication. I didn't want any of that. So I'd been listening to hypnobirthing tracks on YouTube and reading up on hypnobirthing tracks, watching as many hypnobirth stories and vlogs as I could, just positive birth stories, as many of those as I could. So I kind of had a control on the pain mentally. I thought I had a pretty good control on the pain, but I was frustrated because they told me that even with all those contractions that I hadn't progressed any. I hadn't dilated any more than 2 centimeters. I'd been for weeks. So I was having contractions all night long. And then into the day, my kids woke up. They went to school. My husband didn't really sleep that night. I remember that. He kind of stayed awake and watched me. Just kind of watched me. And I would fall asleep and I'd wake up with a contraction and I'd go back to sleep. And all day long, my kids came home from school. I was still doing the same thing, that afternoon. I slept all day, and I never sleep all day. I don't like to stay in the bed past a few minutes after waking up. I'm just not a lounging type of person at all. I want to get up and move around, but I literally slept all day. I would have a contraction. I would go back to sleep all day long, literally. And about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, let me make sure. Yes. Okay, so, well, let me back up. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so we're into October 9th. I was sent home like 2 o'clock in the morning on October 9th, which is Wednesday. So 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I called my doctor's office, and, I'm like, when am I supposed to go into the hospital? Because I've been told forever, when your contractions are about 4 to 5 minutes apart, come into the hospital and all of that. My contractions were already 4 to 5 minutes apart last night, and I didn't have any progress as far as dilation goes. I hope this isn't blurry. Okay. I didn't have any progress as far as dilation goes, so how am I supposed to know when to come back into the hospital? And the nurse that I spoke with, she said, well, if you're still having contractions and they hadn't stopped since last night, then we'd like for you to just go back in and get checked. This is at like 2 o'clock. And I got off the phone and I'm like, I'm not going back into the hospital because it's too many of us. We have a big family. If we have to pack everything up just for them to send me back home, we were just there a few hours ago. No way, not going. So I go back to sleep. Like, I literally I sleep all day. I can't even, it blows my mind because I'm not a sleeper. Like, I felt like I was on some type of sleep medication and I just couldn't do anything but sleep. I think I ate cereal, maybe. Yes, when my daughter came home from school, I asked her to make me a bowl of cereal. Or, no, she made me eggs because when I was pregnant, I loved eggs. I still do. So she made me eggs. That was the first time I ate that afternoon. And then I went back to sleep. I wasn't going to go in. So about 5:30 that afternoon, I called my mom because she was going to talk some sense into me, I'm sure. Well, actually, I was talking to my best friend on text. I was texting her back and forth and just kind of letting her know what was going on. And my best friend's like, you need to go back into the hospital. And I'm like, no. So she threatened to call my mom on me. She threatened to call my mom. I'm a grown woman here. She threatened to call my mom on me. So I called my mom basically for her to, you know, be on my side and say, you know, just get some rest and see how you feel in an hour. But mom was like, you need to go in. And she said that because I called her at like 5:30, but I went to the bathroom about 5:11. I went to the bathroom at 5:11, and when I wiped after I used the bathroom, I'm not even going to give the TMI warning from here on out because it's a labor and delivery vlog, and if you're watching, you kind of know what you're in for. So when I wiped, it was a little bit of like brown, mucusy type, very small amount, very, very, very small amount. But I've been losing my mucus plug over the course of a couple weeks, and I know that the mucus plug and the bloody show different. People use it interchangeably, but it's different. So I had a little bit of brown discharge, or a little bit of blood, a little mucusy blood. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, I've been getting my cervix checked all night long, and I had a membrane sweep the day before, so this could just be that. Oh. Okay. Today is October 9th, 2019, 5:51 p.m. I was at the hospital last night, and after all those intense contractions, I didn't dilate anymore. So they sent me home, and I'll get more into detail on that later. But it's the next day, a little over 24 hours since my membrane sweep. I had a membrane sweep yesterday at 11. Well, my appointment was at 11:15 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So I'm still having, my contractions never stopped. So they sent me home, but even all night I was having contractions. I'm still having contractions. And I'm pretty sure I lost my bloody show. You know, but it could also be spotting because they've checked me so many times yesterday. But that just happened like an hour ago. And I can't imagine spotting taking that long to come down. But it was dark brown and more like a stringy texture. So I'm getting ready to go. I have been so sleepy.
I don't know if I've ever felt so sleepy in my life without having some type of like medicine that made me sleepy. I've literally slept all day through, or, you know, between my contractions all day long. But I'm trying to get dressed so my husband can get us to the hospital so I can get checked again. I do not want to hear go home, which makes me not even want to go to the hospital, but I'm just gonna go get checked. I'm still 6 days away from my scheduled induction date, but the way that I feel, I don't know. I mean, I'm still gonna do natural labor, and I can handle the pain of the contractions, but I could handle it a lot better if I knew that it was going somewhere. If I knew that, okay, they're keeping me, no matter what, at the end of this, we're gonna have a baby, instead of days and days and days of labor with no progress. So I'm gonna get off of here because I want to finish getting dressed before I get hit with another contraction, which will be in a couple minutes. So I will update you guys later.
Okay, so it could have been, just irritation from my cervix because, like I said, I've been getting the membrane sweep and they kept checking my cervix while I was at the hospital. So my mom was like, "You need to go in," and I'm like, Fine. And then the final straw that kind of made me go ahead and go in was my husband told me that he was going to go into work that night. And honestly, I didn't mind because in my mind, I'm not going to go into labor. There's no point in you sitting around staring at me all day, go through these contractions. They're clearly not doing anything, so you might as well. He was going to go into work that night. And about 5 o'clock, I texted him and I said, well, maybe you should take me back in because my doctor did say that she wanted me to get checked. And I'd hate to wait until you go to work to call you in the middle of the night and say, oh my gosh, I need to go to the hospital. I'd rather you just take me in before you go into work. So if they say, okay, no progress, then I can go home and, not even worry about it. So this was at 5:40 that I text my husband at work. And he said, okay, I'll come get you and I'll take you. So the plan was for him to come home. We had all the kids home from school already. So he was basically gonna take me to the hospital, and I told him to just drop me off because when you first get to labor and delivery, they have you in triage and they check you, and everyone can't be in the room at the same time. It's really they really like one person to be back there at the same time, but we have all the kids, then my husband basically would have to stay in the waiting room with them. And that's what he's been having to do every time we've had to go to labor and delivery with the kids. So, so I was going to have him drop me off at labor and delivery. And then I was going to call him if they say we're staying or if, you can come get me because nothing's changed, whatever the case. So we leave. No, let me back up. I called my dad. I called my dad at 5:56. So I texted my husband at 5:40. I called my dad at 5:56. By this time, when I called my dad, I remember having a contraction because this was after I lost the bloody show. And I remember putting on my Depends underwear after using the bathroom because I'm like, okay, I need to check and make sure nothing else is coming out, because at the point where I left my bloody show, when I lost it, I didn't plan on going to the hospital, but I was going to monitor things. So I remember having on my Depends underwear and trying to put on my pants, and I had my knees on the floor and my head on the bed, and I was just rocking my hips back and forth like that, and I was just kind of humming through my contractions. And I was talking to my dad on the phone, and I told him that I'm going to go ahead and go to the hospital. The contractions were still the same intensity that they had been. They hadn't changed since when I was at the hospital, which is why I didn't think anything of them really. They were just so constant and so consistent. I mean, I was literally having them. They never stopped from like 7 o'clock the night before or something like that. So I was kind of rocking through them. Didn't have on pants, and I'm like, I'm trying to put on these pants because My husband's on his way to take me to the hospital. And I kind of breezed through that. Got my pants on. My husband got here, took us all to the hospital. My kids, this time we didn't pack any, focus. This time we didn't pack any diaper bags, any car seats, anything of the sort, because I really have it made up in my mind that they're going to send me home and this is just going to be a trip wasted, but I'd rather go before my husband goes to work than let him go to work and then I call him at some crazy hour of the night, like, come get me. So we get there, we get to the hospital, we get to the labor and delivery part of the hospital because it's kind of has its own little section. So we get there, he pulls up at the door, I'm about to get out and my kids are like, we want to walk you up. We want to go. Like, you're not just, no, we're just going to leave you here. Remember the night before, they were staring at me like, okay, something's happening and we're going to be here to witness it. So they're like, we're walking you up and there's nothing you can say about it. So I get out of the car, my kids get out of the car with me. My husband's like, okay, I guess I'm parking. So we walk right into the hospital, the labor and delivery part of the hospital. And when you walk in, the labor and delivery door, it's literally an elevator right there. You just, the labor and delivery elevator that takes you to the floor. So as soon as we walk up to the elevator, I feel another contraction coming on. And in my mind, I'm like, please just let me get on this elevator first. And so the elevator door opens. My kids walk in, I walk in behind them. As soon as the elevator door closes, I remember my daughter pushing the button to the labor and delivery floor. And once you push the button, the cameras come on so they can see you and they're like, how can I help you? And I fall to my knees. Like, as soon as the elevator doors close, because I was having a contraction, I fall to my knees and I'm holding on to the, the little railing in the elevator. And all I could say was my name. And the contraction still in my mind was the same intensity. It's just, I think that I was at the hospital, I was there in my body. I wasn't standing through most of, any of my contractions up to that point. So I think it just kind of brought me down to my knees, but it wasn't like pain that I couldn't handle. But anyway, all I could say was my name. And so, they brought me on, the elevator went up. And as soon as the elevator door opened, I had my back to the opening of the elevator. There were two nurses standing there and they helped me to my feet and they helped me walk to the room. My kids were right behind me. They were coming with me, but my husband was, immediately right behind us all. So he took the kids to the waiting room because, they wanted to check me and all that. So they got me into the room. They didn't even take me to the triage room. They just took me to a labor and delivery room. They said, let's check you. Let's get you out of these pants. I remember them saying that, and I had on like maternity jeans and, the Depends underwear. And one of the nurses said, let's get you out of these jeans. And it seemed like she was moving so ridiculously slowly. Like, just slow. So I kicked my pants off, like, cheeks to face. She was like, she was down there trying to pull the pants down. I just kicked them off, like, you're moving too slow. Move. I got it. So they get me in the bed. They check me. And so it was 2 centimeters the night before, and I was expecting them to say, you're 2 centimeters, so I was laying there like, oh my God. So they checked me and she said, oh, you're 6 centimeters. And I couldn't do anything but cry, because like I kept telling my dad, I can handle the contractions if I know that they're leading to something. If there's an end in sight, if it's doing something, I can handle the contractions. So when she said I was 6 centimeters, all I could do was cry because, yes, this is not for nothing. This is happening. Something is happening. So one of the nurses went out and told my husband, we're having a baby today. So my husband came back in the room. The kids came back in the room. We started making phone calls because we have the kids and, we need to have family members come and get the kids and everything situated. And we didn't do that because I was totally expecting to go back home. I didn't even have anybody on standby. So he's making phone calls. I hand my daughter my phone, like, here, you make some phone calls too. I'm just gonna deal with these contractions. So I remember the doctor coming in. This is I just totally forgot about all the time. But we got to the hospital around 6:40 or something, 6:40 p.m. on October 9th. So the doctor came in. He wasn't my doctor. but he was a doctor on call. He came in and he said, well, you're 6 centimeters. Do you want me to break your water? And I'm just like, sure. It was actually in my birth plan to not have them break my water. And actually, I have my birth plan printed out somewhere. It's in my diaper bag still. I'll grab it and kind of go over that too, because everything was in pictures. I just wanted them to know what it is, not have to read, not skip anything or anything of the sort. So, okay, so I had to pause and get some things together. Hopefully I can remember where I just was. The doctor came in. I'm going to backtrack. The doctor came in and asked if I wanted him to break my water. I'm like, sure, break it. Oh, that's what I was saying. It was in my birth plan that I didn't really want anybody to break my water. I didn't want Pitocin. I didn't want pain medication. I didn't want you to offer it to me. If you offered me pain medication, you were no longer allowed to be in my room. I wanted dim lights. I wanted to be able to labor in the big jacuzzi tub in the bathroom. I wanted to be able to move around as often as I needed to. I wanted to move around freely, and I wanted to deliver in a squatting position. I didn't want to deliver laying on my back. So all those things were in my birth plan. Again, if I remember, I'll grab it because it was all in pictures. Make it easy for everybody that came in the room. So anyhow, when he came in and said that I wanted him to break my water, I'm like, yes, sure, break it. Let's go. Break it. So he breaks my water. I don't know what time that was. I didn't even pay attention to the time. It was somewhere around 7:15, I think. But I think it was 7:10. It's like 7:10 that he broke my water. And I remember my husband saying, because things were happening, I remember him saying, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go to the house, pick up the diaper bag, pick up the car seat, get stuff for the kids because they're gonna have to go to school tomorrow, and the family's gonna have to come get them. And the doctor's saying, if you leave now, you're gonna miss it. This baby's gonna be here before 8 o'clock. So my husband's like, okay, well, I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. We're just gonna have to do all that stuff later. So that was at, I don't know, 7:10 or something like that. They checked me again probably 20 minutes later. I was not paying attention to the time, so it could have been 5 minutes later. I really don't know. But we're going to say it's about 20 minutes later, the nurse checked me again, and I was 7 centimeters dilated when she checked me. And then she said, excuse me, okay, well, since we've already had you, since your water's already been broken, I'm not going to keep checking you because I don't want to, cause an infection because you no longer have, the water net protection. So when you start feeling pressure, then let me know and I'll check you again. So I'm like, okay, fine. Don't know what time that was, but I do remember at 8 o'clock. Wait a minute. Okay, at 8:20, I was telling her that I was feeling something. I was feeling some type of pressure again. So she said, okay, well, let me check you. So she checks me at 8:20 p.m. And she says, okay, you're 8 centimeters. Says 8 centimeters. My kids and my husband, they're all still in the room. My kids are kind of just bouncing between watching TV and staring at me. I don't really know what they were doing. Everybody was invisible kind of to me at this point. When I was every time I would have a contraction, my husband was standing on my left side. My nurse was on the right side. And he was holding my hand. And I remember the thing that helped me the most, and, this was just kind of instinct for him, which I greatly appreciate, but he was just kind of rubbing his hand, his fingers up against my forearm like that, just kind of soft touch. And during a contraction, all I would focus on was his fingers on my arm. He was just kind of doing that. And that's all I would focus on, and it would kind of get me through the contraction. And I knew that they were going to last for like no more than a minute in my mind. 40, in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is only going to last for 40 seconds. It's, it's not going to be terrible. It's not going to be forever. This is taking you somewhere. So, and it never got out of control. The pain never got out of control. And in my mind, the intensity of the pain was still the same as it was the night before. So, I was completely shocked when they even said I was 6 centimeters, let alone 8 centimeters. And the nurse kept commenting on how well I was doing compared to you know, most women, some women, I'll say, that are in labor, especially with no pain medicine, to be 8 centimeters, I was already in transition, and I was handling it exceptionally well. I was still rocking and, you know, kind of moaning through them. I feel like when I got closer to the end, you know, being at 8 centimeters, my moaning kind of went from to oh, you know, but I was doing pretty well, according to my nurse. So I remember a family member coming in shortly after that and taking the kids to the waiting room, because there was no point in leaving at that point. The baby was going to be born very soon thereafter, and they're going to want to see her. So they all went to the waiting room. My husband's still on my left, holding my hand. My nurse, who just checked me at 8:20 p.m., told me I was 8 centimeters. She was standing at the computer because she was entering in the information in the computer that she just checked me and you know, my progress. And every time I have a contraction, you know, she was great. When I did kind of start losing control, she would remind me to just breathe. You can do this. You're doing a great job. Just breathe through it. And, you know, I'd open my eyes and I'd look at her and I'd focus on her face for a minute, and I'd look over at my husband, I'd focus on his face and I'd focus on his touch, and I'd kind of get through that 40 seconds or whatever it was. And when I had, okay, so 8:20 p.m., she checked my cervix. I was 8 centimeters dilated. And I remember having a contraction right after that. And when I had a contraction, my body jolted up. Like, I'm laying on the bed. Mind you, the bed, you know, because when I got there, I was 6 centimeters. Nothing had been prepared for delivery because I wasn't ready to, you know, I was only 6 centimeters. So the bed hadn't been dropped, the bottom. We didn't have the stirrups going on or anything of the sort. There was nothing in there. I was still doing paperwork. People were still coming in and out of the room, you know, getting paperwork together. And I was having to sign stuff and all that. So the contraction that I had right after she checked me, my body just kind of jolted up, like my back. You know, I was sitting up and I was kind of breathing through it. And then after that contraction, I told my nurse that my body's pushing. I'm like, when I have a contraction, my body's pushing, but I'm not trying to push. And she said, well, that's just your body bringing baby down. And I'm like, okay, because I'd had, you know, kids before, but I had epidural every time. So this time I'm like, I don't want any of that. I want to remember everything. I want to experience it all. So this is new territory for me. So she said that's what my body was doing. I'm like, okay, well, that's what's happening. And then a minute or two later, I have another contraction. I don't know how long later. A couple minutes later, I have another contraction. This time, this contraction, I went from, at the beginning of the contraction, I remember I was just, you know, kind of moaning through it. And then by the end of the contraction, I was screaming. This is the first and only time that I screamed. And because I screamed, it kind of made my husband, you know, look at the monitor. He kind of looked at the contraction monitor. And I didn't want to look at that thing because I didn't even care at that point. But it made him look at it. So he was staring at the monitor. My nurse was still at the computer. I was in the bed handling this contraction. We're the only 3 people in the room. My husband looks down at me. He looks back up at the computer. He looks down at me again. And he was like, is that a head? Is that a head? The baby's head was like coming out. And so I'm, you know, kind of moaning and screaming through this. And my nurse didn't even have time to respond and like turn around and do anything. By the time she turned around, baby was on the bed. Like, it wasn't pushed, you know, push with this contraction, head is delivered, push with your next one, or push again, and then the body comes out. It was just like crowning, baby on the bed. It was just really fast. She was born at 8:27 p.m. So at 8:20 p.m., she checked me. I was 8 centimeters dilated. I had another contraction, and I could feel my body pushing like I told her, but I was not trying to push. But she came out, and I screamed, not because I was in pain, but because it was a lot of pressure. It just felt like I had to poop, and it felt like I was, in my mind, I have to poop. I'm going to poop. You know what? Forget it. I'm just going to poop on the table because clearly I can't help it. So in my mind, I was pooping, but in reality, I was pushing a baby out. There was a baby on the bed. A baby on the bed. So the nurse turned around, and she was like, oh my God, there's a baby on the bed. She pulls the cord out of the wall, which, you know, kind of sets off the emergency deal and lets everybody know you need to get in here. So it was literally like 10 people. I didn't count them. They were all invisible to me. But they came rushing in. It was like they were standing outside the door, waiting and ready. They knew this was about to happen. They came in so fast, so ready. Everything started happening just fast. They came in with a little baby bed. Nikki, you know, whoever they were. I don't know who they were. All I remember is the doctor coming in and him saying, "Can we get some lights on in here?" We didn't even turn on the lights. We didn't even have lights on yet because, I mean, I wanted it dim anyway, so, you know, perfect for me. And then one of the nurses, she looked at the nurse that was in there, and she's like, you know, "What do you need?" And the nurse that was in there is holding my baby, and she's like, help? Like, there's a baby. Help me. And this is right after, you know, the shift changes at like 7 o'clock. So I'm like her first patient of the night, and welcome to work. So, you know, everything happened so fast. I don't know how long from the time I actually delivered her at 8:27 to the time that they got in there and to cut the cord, but I wanted the leg cord clamping anyway. So, you know, by the time the doctor kind of got all his stuff together and his gloves on or whatever he was doing down there, then they were able to cut the cord. And I remember my husband was like, because they were holding scissors and they were like, "Do you want to cut the cord?" And he's like, "What? Wait a minute." Like, I was just staring at a monitor, you know, watching the contraction, and they had scissors in my face. What's happening? It happened so fast. But he cut the cord, and there was a baby on the bed. And I remember looking down at her, and in my mind, I was picking her up and I was holding her on my chest, but I hadn't moved at all. And when they cut the cord, they took her over, just kind of, you know, checked her out because nobody was in there. She was born extremely fast. She spent like no time in the birth canal at all. She was just like, "Oh, it's time," and she shot out of there like Superman. So, you know, they checked her out. She was 5 pounds, 6 ounces, really teeny. But she was perfectly healthy, perfectly fine. She literally delivered herself. She's like, "I don't need help. Don't touch me. I got this." I was like, "I don't need help. Don't touch me. I got this." So her and I have a very special connection because I didn't even want to have to deliver at the hospital. But because of my history with POTS syndrome and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS, I wasn't eligible for a home birth, which is what I would have preferred. But if I were to have a hospital birth, that's the way that I would want to have it. No, I didn't have any medication. I didn't have any intervention. Like, I mean, they checked me. You know, he broke my water. But that was it. You know, I was just laboring, and then she was there. And they checked her, and because she was so small at 5'6", I was 38 weeks in one day. Full term, or, you know, I don't know what they consider it now. I consider it full term. Early term, whatever they call it. But everything was working perfectly. She was great. Because she was small, they just wanted to make sure that she was able to regulate her sugar. I don't know why that keeps getting blurry. But so they had to do a heel stick on her every 2 hours for the first 24 hours just to make sure that she was able to keep her sugar levels up and to make sure that she was able to regulate her body temperature. And for the entire 24 hours, every heel stick, she had great numbers. So we didn't have any issues there, which was perfect. And she didn't even cry. Like, they would wake her up every 2 hours to check her sugar, stick her heel, and she didn't even cry. The only time she cried is when she was hungry. You know, and I was just like, "You're awesome. Kid is awesome." So that was the delivery story. I feel like I missed many details in the middle of that, but it was really fast. I really wanted to have as much of my labor recorded so that I could always have. But when we got to the hospital, everything was moving just too fast. You know, from beginning to end. From the time we got there, everything just happened so fast. And, you know, with having to make phone calls and have family members come up there, we didn't even have time to set up a camera. I mean, the room wasn't even set up yet. Like I said, she was just delivered on the bed. Everything was as it was when I walked in. The only thing that was a mess, my pants were on the floor that I kicked off. Like, everything else was just as it was when we got there. So, that was that. She was born October 9th. 10/9/19, which is the perfect math problem. She just makes total sense. 10 plus 9, 19. Is when she was born at 8:27 p.m. 7 minutes after I was last checked, and I wasn't fully dilated, and my body was just like, okay, we're doing this. So that's how that happened. She will be 3 weeks tomorrow, October 30th, I think tomorrow is. I forgot what today is already. So if I did miss any little details in there, it's because some time has passed and I'm sleep deprived. But I wanted to get this story out, make this recording before I forgot too many details and before too much time has passed. If you like my labor and delivery story, please subscribe, like this video, comment down below. I'll definitely, because it is my mommy channel, I'll definitely be keeping you guys up to date on my postpartum journey, you know, my mommy journey with her learning, her progress, and everything of the sort. So definitely stay up to date. This was perfect. The entire labor and delivery, it was absolutely perfect. I 100% think that all the Hypnobirth videos and recordings that I listened to, I really listened to the same one over and over and over again. I can't remember her name, but I will link it when I finish this video and go find it. You know, it helped me so much. You know, she was saying things like, you know, my contractions cannot be stronger than me because they are me. My body knows how, or my baby knows how and when to be born. You know, just I listen to my body, I trust my body, and things like that. And I mean, my body, I mentally gave my body so much control that my body took over and my mind hadn't even caught up yet. Like, I literally had a baby on the bed and my mom was like, oh wait, what, where are we at here? So I gave my body full control. I trusted my body, I trusted my baby. You know, we worked together and we made it happen, and it was perfect. The pain intensity never got past what it was the night before, what I've been having, you know, the contractions that I've been having for weeks. It never got any more intense than that. And for me, it was just that they were happening so often that made me tired, and I was like, oh, when are we gonna be done with this already? So that was perfect. Again, like this video, this is probably ridiculously long. I have no idea how long this video is going to be with all the clips and things inserted. But like this video, comment down below, subscribe to stay in touch, or, you know, keep up with my journey. And I will see you guys next video. Bye.